This terrifying true story was sent to us by a Reddit user who asked to remain anonymous. Some details have been changed for privacy, but their experience remains chillingly real. I always thought bad things happened in the city. You know, crime, violence, people disappearing without a trace. Out here, where I grew up, the only thing you had to worry about was the occasional bear getting into your trash cans. Or at least that's what I used to believe. It started last summer. I had just gotten out of a rough breakup, and I needed to get away, far away. The noise, the arguments, the endless texts. It was suffocating. So, I did what I always used to do when I needed to clear my head. I went camping. There's this old hiking trail about 30 miles outside of town. Hardly anyone goes there anymore. The forest is dense, wild, untouched. Perfect for someone looking for real solitude. I packed light, a tent, a sleeping bag, some food, and my hunting knife, just in case. The plan was simple. Hike out, find a nice clearing, set up camp, and spend 2 nights alone with my thoughts. I left early on a Friday morning. The sun was barely up, casting long shadows through the misty woods. By noon, I had hiked almost 6 miles in, far beyond where casual hikers usually ventured. It was quiet, so quiet that the only sounds were my own footsteps and the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. By mid-afternoon, I found the perfect spot, a small clearing surrounded by tall pines, with a narrow creek running nearby. Idyllic, exactly what I needed. I set up my tent, started a small fire, and sat back against a log, just listening to the wind move through the trees. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. But peace doesn't last long when something, or someone, is watching you. It started subtly. A feeling, a prickle at the back of my neck, like when you're sure someone's staring at you. I brushed it off at first. You're just paranoid, I told myself. You wanted isolation. This is what it feels like. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky orange and pink, I cooked a small dinner over the fire. Beans and rice. Nothing fancy. I was just finishing up when I heard it. A twig snapping loudly, maybe 20 yards away. I froze. At first I thought it might be a deer or a raccoon. But when I stood up and looked toward the sound, I saw him, a figure, just at the edge of the trees. Too far to see clearly, but close enough to make out the general shape. Tall, lanky, wearing dark clothing. He was standing perfectly still, facing me, not moving. I called out, "Hey, you okay out there?" No response. The figure didn't even flinch. The sun was almost down now, and shadows were swallowing the forest fast. My gut screamed at me to pack up and leave, but I told myself again that it was probably just another hiker. Maybe lost, maybe shy. Still, I didn't feel safe. I doused the fire, zipped up my tent, and clutched my knife as I lay inside, listening, waiting. For a while, there was nothing but the chirping of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. And then, just past midnight, I heard the footsteps, slow, heavy, crunching the leaves just outside my tent. My heart raced so fast I thought it might explode. I held my breath, knife ready, as the steps circled my tent. Once, twice, 3 times. Then they stopped, right outside the entrance. I waited, every muscle in my body locked tight. I could hear breathing, low, ragged breathing, like someone trying to hold back a cough. Minutes dragged by. It felt like hours. Finally, the breathing moved away, slowly, until it faded into the woods. I didn't sleep that night. At the first light of dawn, I packed up and started back down the trail. I didn't even eat breakfast. I just wanted out. The hike back felt longer. Every crack of a branch, every rustle of leaves sent my heart into overdrive. I kept checking behind me, convinced I'd see that figure again, and then halfway back to the car, I did. He was standing directly on the trail about 50 yards ahead, facing me, motionless, closer now. I could make out more details. His clothes were filthy, torn in places. His skin looked pale, almost grayish, and his eyes. Even from that distance, I could feel his eyes locked on me. Unblinking, unmoving. I stopped dead in my tracks. We stood there for what felt like forever. Neither of us moved. Finally, I took a step back, then another. Then I turned and ran. I don't think I've ever run so fast in my life. Branches whipped against my face, rocks tore at my boots, but I didn't care. I just ran. Behind me, I heard him crashing through the underbrush, chasing me. Not fast, not sprinting, but steady, relentless, like he knew I'd tire out eventually. I burst out of the forest onto the dirt parking area where my car was waiting. No one else was around, not a single other vehicle. Fumbling with my keys, I got the door open, threw myself inside, and slammed the locks down. I started the engine and tore out of there, gravel spraying from my tires. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing at the edge of the woods, watching, always watching. But it wasn't over, not by a long shot. That was just the beginning. I wish I could say that once I drove away, it was over, that I left him behind in those woods and never saw him again. But that would be a lie. The nightmares started first. Every night I'd dream about running through the forest, branches clawing at my skin, hearing footsteps just behind me. And always when I looked back, I'd see him, standing still, watching, waiting. After a few sleepless weeks, I tried to convince myself it was just trauma. Stress playing tricks on my mind. It made sense, right? I'd had a terrifying experience. Anyone would have nightmares after something like that. But then things started happening in the real world. At first it was little things. My trash cans would be knocked over at night. Lights would flicker in my apartment, even though the wiring was supposedly fine. I'd catch glimpses of movement from the corner of my eye, shadows slipping just out of view. Still, I told myself it was all in my head, until the night I saw him again. It was around 2 a.m. I was driving home from a late shift at work. The road's empty except for my car. I was just a few blocks from my apartment when my headlights caught something on the side of the road. A figure, standing perfectly still, tall, thin, wearing dark, ragged clothes. For a second, I thought it was just a homeless man, plenty of them in the city. But as I passed, I caught a glimpse of his face in my rearview mirror, pale, expressionless, and those eyes, those same dead eyes, locked onto mine. I nearly wrecked my car, swerving into my parking spot. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding so hard, I thought I might black out. When I finally worked up the courage to look around, he was gone. I sprinted up the stairs to my apartment, locking the door behind me and shoving a chair under the knob for good measure. I barely slept that night. And the next morning, when I stepped outside, I found something waiting for me. A small pile of rocks, neatly stacked, sitting right outside my door. Not random stones, but arranged carefully, almost ritualistically, like a warning or a mark. I kicked them away and tried to laugh it off. Maybe some stupid kids messing around. That's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew. He had followed me. Days turned into weeks. I stopped sleeping. I stopped going to work. I barely ate. I kept my windows shut tight, my curtains drawn, my doors locked at all times. Still, I would catch glimpses of him, standing across the street, lurking in the alley behind my building, waiting in the shadows at the gas station when I dared to go out for supplies. Always silent, always watching. I called the police once, told them about the man following me, stalking me. They were polite at first. Took a report, promised to look into it. But no one ever came. No one ever found anything. And the look in the officer's eyes told me what he really thought. That I was crazy, paranoid. Maybe I was. But that didn't explain the scratches I found on my apartment door one morning. Long, deep gouges, as if someone had dragged a knife or nails across the wood. Or the time I found muddy footprints leading from my window to the center of my living room, even though the windows had been locked from the inside. Or the night I woke up to find him standing at the foot of my bed. Yes, that happened. I don't know how he got in. Maybe he was never outside to begin with. Maybe he'd always been inside, waiting. I woke up with a jolt, my room ice cold, the air so thick it was hard to breathe. And there he was, tall, still, pale, those empty eyes fixed on me. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. I just lay there, paralyzed by pure animal terror, as he lunged closer. So close, I could smell the rot on his breath. And then, he whispered. I don't know what he said. The words didn't make sense, like a language not meant for human ears. It sounded like a hiss, like the wind through dead trees. And then he was gone. Just gone. No noise, no movement. One moment he was there, the next, the room was empty. I sat up, gasping, sweat pouring down my face. I checked every door, every window. Everything was still locked, everything untouched, except for one thing. On my nightstand, there was a single stone, gray, smooth, like the ones from the forest clearing. I hadn't brought it there. I left my apartment that night. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and drove. No destination, no plan, just away. I didn't care where I ended up, as long as it was far, far from here. But deep down, I knew the truth. You can't run from something that's inside you. I drove for hours that night. Highways, back roads, dirt trails. Anywhere the lights were few and the towns were smaller. I didn't check my phone, didn't stop for gas, until I absolutely had to. When I finally pulled into a cheap roadside motel somewhere in the middle of nowhere, the sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky a sickly orange. I could barely keep my eyes open. Every time I blinked, I saw flashes of him, standing in the rearview mirror, sitting in the back seat, walking alongside the road. The motel clerk didn't ask questions. He just slid me a key without a word, barely looking up from the small TV on the counter. Room 6, end of the hall, closest to the woods. I should have seen that as a sign. I should have kept driving, but I was too tired, too broken. I stumbled into the room, locked every lock on the door, pulled the curtains tight, and collapsed on the bed without even taking off my boots. I don't know how long I slept. When I woke up, it was dark again. The clock on the nightstand blinked 11:47 p.m. The air in the room was heavy, like the pressure right before a thunderstorm, the kind that makes your skin crawl. I sat up slowly, every muscle screaming in protest, and that's when I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping, tap, 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 coming from the window. I froze. My stomach turned to ice. The curtains were still drawn tight. There was no way anyone could see in. But the tapping continued, slow, deliberate, like fingers drumming on the glass. Gathering what little courage I had left, I slid off the bed and crept toward the window. I pressed my ear against the wall and held my breath. Tap, tap, tap. I wanted to scream. Instead, I ripped the curtain open in one sudden motion. Nothing, no one there, just the empty moonlit parking lot and the shadowy line of trees beyond. I let out a shaky breath, laughing nervously at myself. You're losing it, I thought. You're finally cracking up. I closed the curtain and turned back toward the bed. That's when I saw him, standing in the corner of the room, not outside, inside. His body was twisted, like he didn't quite fit into the space he occupied. His arms were too long, his neck tilted at an unnatural angle, and those dead, hollow eyes burned into mine. I stumbled back, slamming into the wall, knocking over a lamp that shattered on the floor. But he didn't move. He just stood there, watching, breathing that ragged, shallow breath. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing him to disappear, praying I was hallucinating. When I opened them again, he was gone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At first light, I left the motel, leaving my bag behind. I didn't care. I just needed to keep moving. I tried to lose myself in the highways, endless miles of empty road, nameless towns, blank faces. But it didn't matter. He was always there, in the reflection of a diner window, in the bathroom mirror of a gas station, standing under a streetlight in a town I didn't even know the name of, always closer, always watching. One night, desperate, I pulled off onto a side road somewhere deep in the countryside. Fields stretched endlessly on either side, the moonlight painting everything silver. I drove until the road turned into gravel, then into dirt, until there was nothing but trees and silence. I parked the car, killed the engine, and sat there, breathing hard, heart hammering in my chest. You have to end this, I thought. Face him. I stepped out of the car, the cool night air biting into my skin. I stood there in the middle of nowhere, turning in a slow circle, scanning the darkness. And then I heard it. The footsteps, crunching over dry leaves, getting closer. I turned toward the sound. And there he was, emerging from the trees, moving in that strange, broken way, like his joints didn't work right. But faster now, urgent, hungry. I didn't run. There was nowhere left to run. Instead, I stood my ground, clutching the only weapon I had, a tire iron from the trunk of my car. He came closer and closer. I could see his face clearly now, skin stretched too tight over sharp bones, mouth twisted into something that might have once been a smile. He raised a hand, long bony fingers tipped with broken nails, and pointed at me. A sound came from his mouth, not words, a low, guttural growl, rising into a piercing shriek that made my ears bleed. I raised the tire iron, ready to fight, ready to die. But just as he reached me, he vanished. Not faded, not ran away, just gone, like smoke blown away by the wind. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air, tears streaming down my face. It was over, or so I thought. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain how he disappeared, how he was there 1 second and gone the next. The only thing I knew for certain was that I couldn't stay in that place any longer. I was done. I left the car there, just left it in the dirt and walked for miles, out of the woods, away from everything. I found a small town not far from the edge of the forest, checked into a motel again, and locked myself in, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even close my eyes without seeing his face. I started researching. What was happening to me? Was I losing my mind? I went through pages and pages of forum posts, Reddit threads, ghost stories, urban legends, anything that could explain what had happened. That's when I found it. A post on a subreddit dedicated to true crime and unexplained disappearances. It was posted by someone whose username was just a string of random letters and numbers. Have you seen him? The man in the woods. The post was a series of incoherent ramblings, but as I read, something clicked. It wasn't just me. There were others who had seen him. The post talked about a man who haunted the forests, not just in my town, but all over the country. He wasn't human. He was something else. A shadow that followed people. A stalker who wouldn't stop until you were his. There were no details, just fragments of stories. People who went missing, who vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a pile of rocks. The more I read, the more I felt like I was sinking into a pit, like I was being pulled deeper into something dark, something impossible to escape from. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came in the comments. One comment stood out, a reply to the original post. "If you've seen him, it's already too late. He won't stop. And if you ever see a pile of rocks outside your door, don't touch it. Whatever you do, don't touch it." I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I scrolled down, trying to find more answers. Then I saw it, a name. Gordon Fisher. It was a link to a news article from years ago. A man who had been missing, last seen camping in the same forest I had been to. The date of his disappearance was just a few months before I went on that trip. And in the article, there was one chilling detail. The police found a pile of rocks near his campsite, just like the ones I had seen outside my apartment. I felt sick. I clicked on another link, and then another. Each story was more horrifying than the last. The same pattern, the same pile of rocks, the same shadowy figure. People had tried to fight back. They had tried to resist, but nothing worked. The man, the thing, always won. It became clear to me. This wasn't just a nightmare. This wasn't just something in my head. The man wasn't just following me. He was hunting me. But why me? Why had I been chosen? And then I saw something I wish I hadn't. A forum user had posted a picture, a grainy, blurry picture of the woods. It was a dark forest, with trees stretching toward the sky like twisted fingers. And in the distance, near the edge of the trees, there was a figure. It was him. But something was different. His skin was rotting, like it had been burned away. His eyes were glowing, burning with an unnatural light. And in his hands, he was holding something, a pile of rocks. The caption read, "He's waiting for you. And if you're reading this, he already knows." I couldn't take it anymore. I packed up and left the motel the next morning, but my mind was a mess. I felt like I was being suffocated by something I couldn't see, couldn't fight. My hands were clammy, my stomach twisted into knots. That night, I drove for hours again, as far as I could go. I needed to escape, but no matter where I went, no matter how far, I knew he was out there. I finally stopped at a small town in the middle of nowhere. It seemed quiet, peaceful even. I checked into a motel, the same routine, locked every door, closed every curtain, checked every window. But this time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that I was being watched. I stepped outside for a moment to grab some fresh air, and that's when I saw it, a pile of rocks, right outside my motel room door. I froze. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating, but there they were, stacked, neat, and deliberate. I didn't touch them. I didn't even get close. I ran inside, slammed the door shut, and locked it. But I knew it was too late. The man was here. He had found me, and there was nowhere left to run. I couldn't sleep that night. The pile of rocks outside my motel room door was still there, staring at me like a warning. I didn't touch them. I didn't dare, but my heart was racing. I could feel the tension building, like the air before a storm. I sat there in the dark, my back pressed against the wall, waiting for something to happen, waiting for him to show up. Hours passed, but nothing happened. I kept expecting to hear footsteps outside, the sound of breathing just beyond the door. But there was only silence, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I knew it was too late. And then around 3 a.m., it happened. I heard it. A faint tapping. Not at the door, not at the window. It was coming from inside the room. I froze. My blood ran cold. The tapping got louder, sharper, like nails scratching against the walls. I spun around. There was nothing there. No figure, no shadow, just the empty room. And then, in the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shape, a movement. He was standing there, not in the corner, not at the door, right in front of me. His eyes, they were glowing now, burning with a sickly yellow light, piercing the darkness. His face was twisted, deformed, like someone who had been dragged through hell and back. And his mouth, it opened. The sound that came out of him wasn't a voice. It was a shriek, a horrible, inhuman wail that made my chest tighten and my ears bleed. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My throat felt like it was closing, like I was suffocating. I stumbled back, tripping over the chair, but he was right there, right in front of me. I could feel the heat coming off him now, like his body was burning, but the air around us was freezing cold. He reached out, his long, twisted fingers brushing my face. His touch felt like ice, like death. I grabbed the tire iron from my bag, swinging it at him with all my strength, but it went straight through him, like he wasn't even real. And then he lunged at me. I didn't even see it coming. 1 second he was standing there, and the next, he was on top of me, his face inches from mine. I could smell his breath. Rotten, decaying, like something dead had been left to rot for days. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die right there, in that room. But then, something inside me snapped. A surge of adrenaline, a final, desperate instinct to survive. I pushed him off me with every ounce of strength I had left, knocking him back. And for the first time, I saw it. A crack, a tiny crack in the air, right in front of him. A tear in the fabric of reality. It was like the world itself was breaking apart. I didn't know what it was, or how it happened, but I knew it was my chance. I grabbed the rocks, the pile of rocks outside the door. Without thinking, I threw them at him. Each rock hit him like a punch, breaking his form apart, like he was made of glass, and with each hit, the crack in the air grew wider. He screamed. The sound was deafening. The walls of the room seemed to shake, but the crack kept growing. Finally, with one last scream, he vanished. The room was silent. The air was still. I didn't move. I didn't dare. I sat there for what felt like hours, too terrified to even breathe. And then, just before dawn, I heard something. A whisper, faint and distant. It was him, but this time, his voice was different. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a growl. It was a laugh. I didn't stay another second. I grabbed my things, ran out of the motel, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care anymore. But I knew one thing. He was still out there, still watching. And no matter how far I ran, he would find me.